Justin Waller has a great take on networking that, breaks down the first of the 48 laws of power. So let's check out what he has to say. And it all relates to networking as well.
First law in the 48 laws of power: don't outshine the master. Even if you are the brightest light in the room, you have to understand whose room you're in. And you have to show that respect, because when you can show that respect, that person now can trust you to have you at his event again. And he can also trust you to connect you with the next person that you need to meet in your journey of networking and doing business with people all over the world. Because if you can do that, you can be trusted to go into other ecosystems and not think that you're the star of the show. You don't want to be arrogant. You want to be grateful, and you want to be graceful.
That's real.
So you don't want to be arrogant, you want to be grateful, and you want to be graceful. So this leads to a question that I have.
I got a question.
That question is, why are people so bad at networking?
She's ready for that.
I am. I'm ready.
Go ahead.
I actually think first and foremost, it has nothing to even really do with that clip per se. I think it really has to do with people being afraid of people nowadays. They don't want to go out. They have social anxiety. They overthink what they're going to say, what they're going to do. Like the first 48 law of power that was displayed in that clip, that's something that comes when you're simply willing to network, when you're willing to learn the process of how you should be networking. But if you're not even willing to get out there and do it, it's kind of like, this for nothing. So,
But what's funny is, a lot of people want that power, and they want people will make YouTube videos and never go out and connect with their audience in any, face-to-face communication because they're scared of the face-to-face communication, but they still want the visibility and the power of, what networking would do for them. So it is kind of ironic that, we want the glory, but we kind of only want it in this digital space rather than, actually going out and making meaningful personal connections with people, which I think it's a real travesty would be the right word. So, Kenny, what do you think?
I think it stems from having a lack of love for people, because if you really loved people, you wouldn't try to network out of selfish reasons, like trying to get to the next step. You'd be like, oh, I want to network with this person because they're interesting and I would love to try to add value to them, or I'd love to help out in any kind of way. And I think through adding value to people, then naturally they want to add value to you. And as they add value to you and you add value to them, you both level up in a way. So I think that's the biggest reason why people are so bad at networking.
a servant heart.
Yes,
You have a servant heart, and because you have this servant heart and you're doing, business or in relation with good people, then that is also reciprocated back to you, which is a beautiful thing. Now let's talk about, people get over the hump of, I'm out networking and they are, in those spaces. What do you see? Because, Justin Waller is like, no, it's better to be grateful and graceful rather than to, go in there, with your head, super high and your chest all out, trying to be, peacock around, essentially. So talk about, being in different spaces, and especially as women, that could be very hard because things can get very catty and very contentious. So y'all both have to, network in some sense for, jobs, or, y'all both run, in content creation as well. So talk about not outshining and the master, essentially, and how context matters in certain scenarios.
Well, for me, I'm very much on the quiet side. Like, I'm like to myself for the most part. So in the past, when I've gone to like events or networking events, my goal has always been, let me connect with one person and from there add value in some kind of way. I know some people go in and they're like, let me hand my business card to this person, this person, this person. For me, I was just like, let me just find one or two people to actually like have a conversation with and go from there personally. And I feel like that makes it more personal and real rather than going around the room and like trying to talk to everybody and things like that. But that's just me because that's just my personality.
Honestly, same. I have a very similar personality. I'm actually very to myself, and my same goal is to really go out and connect with at least 1 to 2 people.
Yeah.
And I actually learned this trick from Jordan Peterson, because when I go out, I do tend to get anxiety because I overthink, and I'm like, okay, what does this person think about me? What am I going to say? How am I going to look? Like, what do I look like to this person? And Jordan Peterson, I'm going to probably butcher it and summarize it a little, but he basically said, take yourself out of it and focus on the person you're talking to. So that's what I do when I go out and network. I mean, I know it's just that simple, but it really is that simple. I stop thinking about myself and I begin to focus on what that person is saying, what they do, and I ask them questions. I get interested. I get involved, and I continue to show my interest in that person. And I don't even mention myself at all. I don't mention myself. I don't think about myself until they ask. And that's kind of how I've been doing it. And it makes for a really, it takes a lot of the pressure off, because you're no longer thinking about how you look in a situation. Because most of the time when people go out, they are thinking about themselves. So they're not really paying attention to you like that. So it's like, if you can do the same thing and take the focus off of you and put it onto them, it makes it a lot easier to connect with people.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're able to find how you can, like, if there's a business opportunity to arise, you're able to better find, okay, this is where it is. Whereas if you just take stuff at, face value, or just hand them your business card, they don't really know you, and you don't necessarily know what they can contribute into your life, and vice versa. And so if you do take that approach where you're really in the present trying to learn about that person and make this genuine connection, then you will find that area where that perfectly intersects, where as when you initially started talking about that person based on maybe their, LinkedIn bio or Instagram bio or whatever, you thought it was going to be a certain, point of connection, but it's actually something much deeper and much more profitable. Or what you thought could have been a connection, okay, it wasn't, but because you dug deeper, something that you do later on in the future, you can come back and be like, hey, I remember you, and yeah, I remember we thought we were going to, do business in this way, but because we got to know each other and I got to know you in a deeper sense, then I know that you're into this area. I'm actually, trying to get into this area. What do you think about it? Like, let's connect. And so that's why you always have to, be present and, seek to understand, who the person is before you. Because anytime you go into a business dealing, you don't necessarily want to go into it, if you can help it, with somebody you don't really know at all, that only has a good reputation. Now, if that's all you have, then yeah, that's great. Go off of like their reputation should precede them. But ultimately you want them to have a good reputation, but you also want to know them on a level to where it's like, okay, we have a good business relationship, rather than, oh, we're doing business together and this person has a good reputation. So let's go through this thing, or this clip, one more time, and maybe break it down, along the way.
First law in the 48 laws of power: don't outshine the master. Even if you are the brightest light in the room, you have to understand whose room you're in. And you have to show that respect, because when you can show that respect, that person now can trust you to have you at his event again. And he can also trust you to connect you with the next person that you need to meet in your journey of networking and doing.
So that's very powerful too, because if you just go into a space and you're like, I'm going to show everybody who I am, right? But it's not your space. Well, then the person that's actually created that space, that is, fostering, this event or whatever the situation is, they're probably going to take offense. It's like, well, who is this coming up into my domain acting this way? Whereas if you are smart about it, like he says, don't outshine the person who is, the creator of the space that you're in, right? Even if you think that you are greater than this, it's like, no, like context matters. Like you need to act appropriately in the appropriate context. So you go in and you do your thing, you be present, you learn, and you foster these relationships so that when you go and you create your own space, right, then now you have all these connections and you have the trust of the person that created that space, right? But if you go in there and you just peacock around, well, now you're going to burn a bridge with this person who created that space and invited you into that space. Plus, some people are just going to be like, nah, that's too much for me right off rip, right? And so very important lesson to be learned from there. Do you have anything to add?
I never read the 48 Laws of Power, but Alan has, and that's one of the ones that he always brings up to me. So Alan is really good at networking. Like
I believe it.
Like he is the
so
best.
Is Josh.
Yeah, exactly. Like he is the best. Like he understands like going into a space and making sure that he focuses in on that person and so that he can bring things out of them that will present different opportunities for different things. Like he's very good at that. And so I actually learned about that law of power from him because like I said, I never read the book or anything. So I was very familiar with it.
Right. I mean, and the Bible even talks about those who humble themselves will be exalted and those who exalt themselves will be humbled. And so you have to humble yourself pretty much at all times, because you got to understand, even if you are at the top of the pole, you still have to humble yourself before God so that he can continue to elevate you as he sees fit in the appropriate manner. But if you try to just go in and exalt yourself, well, then ultimately somebody's going to bring you down to earth, right? Because, gravity's always going to pull you back down no matter how high you jump. So,
Yeah,
business with people.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
All over the world. Because if you can do that, you can be trusted to go into other ecosystems and not think that you're the star of the show. You don't want to be arrogant. You want to be grateful and you want to be graceful.
yeah. So, again, that just goes with being humble, grateful, and graceful. Go ahead.
I just think it all stems back to humility and selflessness. And I think the reason why a lot of things like social anxiety exist and all those things, like how Miracle was saying, usually people are only thinking about themselves. I feel like once we're able to, disconnect from that and be humble and be selfless and have a love for people, it's easier just to go into a room and have conversations with people and realize people aren't really thinking about you that much, like that. So that's something freeing to think about.
I completely agree.
Yeah. And so let's get into our quality sip. So relationships are the foundation of a good life.
Yes.
So again, back to, my analogy earlier is first you have the relationship with God, right? That is the foundation of a good life, which, creates the foundation for the relationship with yourself, which creates the foundation for the relationship with your immediate family, and then thus your community and out towards the world. And so it is foundational, which that's all networking is creating relationships. And so if your relationship isn't centered in the middle, so first upward, rooted in Christ, and then, grounded in yourself and the values that you live by, well, then it's going to suffer outside in the business world or, in whatever your venture is. So that is what we think. We would like to know what you think. When we come back, we'll have one more section of the weekly tea. So keep it locked here with Kenya, Miracle, and me.
Like without rhythm, like without rhythm, like without rhythm.